Listen carefully, because what you are about to understand will challenge everything you've been taught about attraction, conversation, and connection. Most men believe that to impress a woman, they must speak more, explain more, entertain more. They think value is proven through constant expression. But this is the illusion of the weak. The truth, as Niccolò Machiavelli would whisper in the shadows, is far more dangerous. Power is not in what you say. It is in what you choose not to say. Observe the world around you. The man who fills every silence, who rushes to explain himself, who nervously strings together words to avoid discomfort, he is not in control. He is reacting, and the one who reacts loses. Women, whether they are aware of it or not, are constantly reading between your words. They are not just hearing you, they are measuring you, measuring your restraint, measuring your composure, measuring whether you command the moment or are controlled by it. Silence is not emptiness, silence is pressure. And pressure, when applied correctly, bends perception. When you speak less, you force her to invest more. She begins to wonder, to question, to lean in. Your absence of words becomes a vacuum that pulls her curiosity toward you. This is the paradox most men fail to grasp. The less you give, the more she seeks. The more you reveal, the less she values. Understand this deeply. Mystery is not an accident. It is a calculated decision. The powerful man does not rush to fill space. He allows pauses to exist. He allows moments of quiet tension to breathe, because in those moments, something subtle happens, the dynamic shifts. She becomes aware of herself. She becomes aware of you. And most importantly, she becomes aware of the fact that you are not trying to impress her. That alone separates you from the masses. Think of it like a game of control. When you speak too much, you hand over pieces of yourself, your thoughts, your intentions, your insecurities. Piece by piece, you make yourself predictable, and predictability is the death of attraction. But when you hold back, when you reveal only fragments, you remain undefined. And what is undefined cannot be easily dismissed. This is why the most powerful presence in any room is often the quietest one. But do not misunderstand, this is not about becoming silent or awkward. This is about precision. Every word you speak must carry weight. It must feel intentional, measured, and controlled. Imagine your words as currency. The average man spends endlessly, devaluing everything he says. The strategic man spends sparingly, making each word feel expensive. When she asks you a question, resist the urge to over-explain. Answer, then stop. Let the silence sit. Let her process. Let her fill the gap if she chooses. Because when she begins to talk more, to invest more, to reveal more, the balance of power quietly shifts in your favor. And here is where it becomes even more subtle. Your silence communicates confidence. Not forced confidence, not loud confidence, but something deeper, unshakable certainty. It tells her that you are comfortable without validation, that you do not need to perform to be valued. And this is rare, so rare, in fact, that it becomes magnetic. Most men fear silence. They interpret it as rejection, as awkwardness, as failure. But the man who understands power, he sees silence as a tool, a weapon, a way to test, to observe, to control the rhythm of interaction. You must begin to reframe your relationship with silence. Instead of escaping it, step into it, own it. Let it work for you. When there is a pause in conversation, do not rush to break it. Hold eye contact. Stay composed, let her feel the weight of that moment, because in that space emotions intensify, curiosity grows, attraction has room to breathe. This is where most men fail. They interrupt the very tension that could have worked in their favor. They panic, they speak, they destroy the moment. Do not be that man. Become comfortable with saying less, but meaning more. Become the man whose presence speaks louder than his words. The one who doesn't need to dominate conversation, because he already dominates attention. And remember this: when you speak less, you also listen more. And when you listen more, you gain information. Information about her desires, her insecurities, her patterns. While she is talking, revealing, expressing, you are observing, calculating, understanding. This is not just conversation. This is strategy. The more she talks, the more she invests emotionally. The more she invests, the more she begins to justify her attraction to you. And all of this happens while you remain composed, controlled, and deliberate. Power, as Niccolò Machiavelli understood, is never about chaos. It is about control, and control begins with discipline. Discipline over your words, discipline over your impulses, discipline over your need to be liked, because the moment you start speaking to gain approval, you have already lost. But when you speak with restraint, when you allow silence to amplify your presence, when you make her work to understand you, something shifts. You are no longer just another man trying to impress her. You become the man she is trying to figure out. And the human mind is irresistibly drawn to what it cannot fully understand. There is a hidden law governing every interaction you have ever experienced, a silent structure beneath words, beneath tone, beneath even intention. Most men are completely blind to it, yet it dictates everything: the direction of the conversation, the emotional dynamic, and ultimately, who holds the power. This law is the frame, and as Niccolò Machiavelli understood in matters of politics and power, the one who controls the frame controls reality itself. When you enter a conversation with a woman, you are not simply exchanging words. You are stepping into an invisible battlefield where perceptions are shaped in real time. And in this battlefield, there are only two positions: you either define the interaction, or you are defined by it. Most men walk into this arena already defeated. They seek approval, they try to impress, they adjust their personality, their opinions, even their humor, just to be accepted. Without realizing it, they surrender the frame within the first few moments, and once the frame is lost, everything that follows becomes an uphill struggle. She begins to lead, she begins to test, she begins to decide your value, but the strategic man never seeks approval. He establishes it. To control the frame means to subtly position yourself as the prize, not through arrogance, not through loud declarations, but through calm, unwavering certainty. It is an energy that says without words, I am already valuable, I do not need to prove it. This is where the shift begins. When she asks you questions, understand the deeper meaning behind them. She is not just seeking information. She is assessing you, testing your reactions, measuring whether you will bend under pressure or stand firm in your identity. And most men fail these tests because they answer from a place of insecurity. They over-explain, they justify, they try to say the right thing, but the man who controls the frame answers on his own terms. If she challenges you, you do not defend, you reframe. If she teases you, you do not react, you amplify or redirect. If she tries to position herself as the judge, you subtly shift the dynamic so that she becomes the one being evaluated. This is not manipulation in the crude sense. This is awareness. This is understanding that every interaction has a direction, and you are choosing to lead it rather than follow blindly. Consider this: when you agree with everything she says, when you mold yourself to match her expectations, you become predictable, safe, forgettable. But when you hold your own perspective, when you are willing to disagree calmly, when you challenge her in a composed and confident manner, you create tension. And tension, when balanced correctly, fuels attraction. You must understand, control of the frame is not about dominance through force. It is about subtle influence. It is about guiding the emotional tone without appearing to control it. For example, if the conversation becomes dull or interview-like, most men fall into the trap of answering questions endlessly. But the strategic man shifts the frame. He introduces playfulness, he asks unexpected questions, he changes the rhythm. Suddenly, the dynamic transforms, and she finds herself more engaged, more invested, more curious. This is power in its purest form. And yet, it requires discipline, because there will be moments where you feel the urge to seek validation. Moments where you want her approval, her attention, her affirmation. But the moment you chase those things, you abandon the frame. You hand over control. The man who controls the frame does not chase attention. He attracts it by being centered within himself. He does not react emotionally to every test or comment. He remains grounded, observing, choosing his responses deliberately. This creates a sense of stability that is rare, and therefore deeply compelling. Think of it like this. Most people are like leaves in the wind, reacting to every shift in emotion, every change in conversation. But the man who holds the frame is the wind itself. He sets the direction, he determines the flow. And here is where it becomes even more strategic. You must learn to subtly invert the dynamic. Instead of trying to impress her, create situations where she begins to impress you. Instead of seeking her validation, create an environment where she seeks yours. This can be done through small, almost invisible shifts in language and tone. Asking her what makes her different. Challenging her opinions with curiosity rather than aggression. Playfully questioning her assumptions. These actions signal that you are not automatically convinced, that your attention must be earned. And when attention must be earned, it becomes valuable. This is a principle Niccolò Machiavelli would recognize immediately. Value is never given freely. It is established through perception, through positioning, through control of the narrative. You are not telling her that you are the prize. You are allowing her to conclude it herself. And the strongest beliefs are always the ones people arrive at on their own. But be warned, controlling the frame requires authenticity. If you attempt to fake confidence, to mimic behaviors without internal belief, it will eventually collapse. Because the frame is not just what you say, it is how you carry yourself, how you respond under pressure, how consistent you remain. Inconsistency breaks the frame, doubt weakens it, neediness destroys it. So you must cultivate an inner foundation. A sense of self that is not dependent on external approval. Only then can you hold the frame effortlessly. Because at its core, this is not about women, it is about power, psychological power, the ability to shape interactions, to guide outcomes, to remain centered while others react. And once you master this, conversations will no longer feel like uncertain exchanges. They will become controlled environments, where every word, every pause, every shift in tone serves a purpose. You will no longer wonder what to say, because you will understand what to create. There is a fatal mistake most men make when speaking to women, a mistake so deeply ingrained that they rarely question it. They believe attraction is built through logic, through explaining who they are, what they do, how stable, how reliable, how good they can be. They believe that if they present enough reasons, she will feel something. But attraction does not obey reason. It never has. And, as Niccolò Machiavelli understood when dealing with the unpredictable nature of human behavior, people are not moved by logic, they are moved by emotion. Logic may justify a decision, but emotion is what creates it. When you speak to a woman, you must understand this truth at a fundamental level. She is not evaluating you like a checklist. She is responding to how you make her feel in the moment. Every word you say is either neutral, or it is creating an emotional reaction. And neutrality is the silent killer of attraction. The average man speaks in facts. I work here. I studied this. I like this kind of music. These statements are informational, but they are lifeless. They do not create tension. They do not create curiosity. They do not create feeling. And without feeling, there is no connection. The strategic man speaks in a way that bypasses logic entirely. He paints experiences, he creates imagery, he uses tone, timing, and subtle implication to evoke emotion beneath the surface of his words. Because emotion is what lingers. Emotion is what she remembers long after the conversation ends. Think about this carefully. She may forget what you said, but she will never forget how she felt while speaking to you. And if you can control that feeling, you control the memory she builds around you. This is where power begins. Instead of answering questions directly, you can transform them into emotional experiences. If she asks what you do not simply state your job like a report. You shape the response in a way that creates intrigue, perhaps even a sense of mystery or playfulness. You make her imagine rather than just understand, because imagination is emotional, and emotion creates investment. This is why storytelling becomes one of the most powerful tools at your disposal. Not long, boring stories filled with unnecessary detail, but sharp, intentional glimpses into experiences that carry emotional weight. Moments of tension, humor, unpredictability. These elements pull her into your world, even if only for a few seconds. And when she is inside that world, she is no longer analyzing you. She is feeling you. But emotion is not just about positivity. This is where most men limit themselves. They try to be constantly nice, constantly agreeable, constantly pleasant. But attraction is not built on comfort alone. It is built on contrast, on the push and pull of different emotional states. A man who can only create comfort becomes predictable, safe, but a man who can shift between warmth and challenge, between calmness and intensity, becomes unforgettable. You must learn to play within this spectrum. A slight tease, delivered with confidence, can create tension. A moment of silence after something suggestive can amplify that tension. A sudden shift into sincerity can create depth. These emotional fluctuations keep her engaged, because she cannot fully predict what comes next. And the human mind craves stimulation. It seeks novelty, it seeks variation, it seeks emotion. This is why monotony kills attraction. If your tone, your energy, your responses remain flat and predictable, her interest will fade, even if she cannot explain why. But when you introduce emotional spikes, moments that stand out, moments that break the pattern, you anchor yourself in her memory. Now understand, this triggering emotion is not about manipulation through deception. It is about understanding human nature. It is about recognizing that beneath logic, beneath social conditioning, people are driven by how they feel in the present moment. And you're choosing to influence that moment. Your voice plays a critical role here. The way you say something often matters more than what you say. A slower tone can create intensity. A slight pause before finishing a sentence can build anticipation. A shift in rhythm can draw her attention more deeply into your words. These are subtle details, but they separate the ordinary from the powerful. Because anyone can speak, but very few can create an experience through their speech. And this is where you begin to stand apart. When she feels something in your presence, whether it is curiosity, excitement, tension, or even slight uncertainty, she becomes engaged on a deeper level. She is no longer passively listening. She is actively participating, emotionally reacting, investing energy into the interaction. And the more she invests, the stronger the connection becomes. This is the hidden mechanism most men never see. They try to earn attraction through effort, through explanation, through logic. But the strategic man understands that attraction is not earned in that way. It is sparked, ignited, and once ignited, it begins to sustain itself. This is why a short, emotionally charged interaction can be more powerful than hours of logical conversation. Because emotion compresses time, it accelerates connection, and it leaves an imprint that logic cannot replicate. As Niccolò Machiavelli observed in The Dynamics of Influence, people may present themselves as rational, but their decisions are guided by forces they do not fully understand. Fear, desire, curiosity, excitement, these are the true drivers of behavior. And when you learn to speak directly to these forces, you move beyond ordinary communication. You begin to shape perception itself, but this requires awareness. You must observe her reactions, her expressions, her shifts in energy, because emotion is not static. It evolves moment by moment, and the more attuned you are to these changes, the more precisely you can guide the interaction. If she becomes too comfortable, you introduce a slight challenge. If tension becomes too high, you ease it with warmth. This balance creates a dynamic that feels alive, unpredictable, engaging. And within that dynamic, attraction thrives. Because at its core, attraction is not a checklist. It is not a formula of logical traits. It is an emotional experience that unfolds in real time. And the man who understands how to create that experience holds a power that cannot be easily explained, but is deeply felt.